Welcome to the CTA Foundation CES interview series. My name is Steve Ewell, and I'm the Executive Director of the Consumer Technology Association Foundation. And I'm really pleased to be joined today by Matt Ater, who is Vice President of Vispero, and he was also recently elected Vice Chair of the CTA Foundation. So welcome, Matt. So happy to have you here today, joining us at CES 2021.
Thank you, Steve, and I am so glad to be here as well. Looking forward to a really fun CES 2021.
Absolutely. Well, first off, Vispero covers a wide range of products and companies. Can you share some of those products and services that you offer?
Yes, that'd be great. Thanks for the opportunity on that. So Vispero, think of them as more of a holding company with 4 brands within it. And 2 of the brands focus primarily on serving people who have low vision and need to be able to improve handling of reading materials. Those brands are Optelec and Enhanced Vision. So think of them as low vision aids that are electronic low vision aids, from anything from something called a Pebble to compact clear view, clear reader, things of that nature. Those are some of the product brands, product names under those brands. And they're more or less video magnification, where you can place something underneath the camera and make the print bigger to be able to read it. It could be a newspaper, it could be a magazine, a recipe book, news, mail you've received, business cards, letters, whatever. The next 2 companies have both technology and services. One of them is Freedom Scientific, and Freedom Scientific has software and hardware designed mostly, again, for the blind and low vision. The software products brands are things like JAWS for Windows, a screen reader for blind people to read the computer. Zoom text magnification software, again, makes the print bigger for people, but using the computer screen. And then the hardware devices, similar to Optelec and Enhanced Vision, have low vision devices that make print bigger of paper or any non-electronic print that you wanted to read. Finally, Freedom Scientific also has Braille devices for people who are blind who want to read electronic Braille. And that's where you connect a Braille display to a computer or something like an iPhone. And then you'd be able to read on that computer or iPhone what those devices said. Finally, the last company in the group is TPG. And TPG is a consulting firm helping organizations make sure that their digital properties, whether it's websites, applications, documents, and so on, are fully accessible for people with disabilities. As many people know, there are lots of people with disabilities around the world who need to access technology just like anybody else. And they may be blind, they may be hard of hearing, physical disability, or some cognitive disability. And there are rules and regulations that guide web designers and developers on the proper way to incorporate accessibility inside their applications and websites. And so that company has software and services to support organizations to ensure that their websites meet the compliance standards.
Well, that's great. And it's really bringing together a lot of interesting brands and a lot of different products that all serve the need of the blind and low vision community and accessibility in general. Vispero's been one of the cornerstones of our accessibility marketplace at CES for the last few years. Why is it so important to have assistive technology at CES?
I think that the first year that I went and we set up, I didn't know what to expect. And it was amazing how many people, both customers or relatives of customers or people who knew people who had vision problems, came by and said, "We are really excited to see your technology here." And so slightly different than when we go to a conference that may be designed specifically for people with disabilities. We're trying to reach a larger audience and make sure people are aware that this technology exists. So there's a education point, and an opportunity for us to also build partnerships with organizations who may use our technology, incorporate our technology, or we may want to work with one of those partner companies to develop technology with them. So the opportunities are in different areas, but I'm so amazed when I'm at CES that there's such a variety of people who come up to us and say, we know this product. It's helped my mom read something. Or I bought this for my father 10 years ago. He's still using it today. Our products like JAWS have such a great name recognition that it also is just wonderful to see people come by and say, hey, I use it both. We have people who say that we're consumers and we need it, or we have people who say, I test our websites with it. So we've really enjoyed being able to participate in the CES each year for the last several years.
Well, we do love having you there, and I think it is important because the line that used to be there of assistive technology versus kind of mainstream technology really, they're blending together as we have greater and greater accessibility in mainstream technology, but there needs to be more opportunities for discussions and partnerships and engagements. And certainly at CES, we have an incredibly diverse community that's attending, many of which use assistive technology products. So being able to have you there and have these conversations, I think will lead to better products for all of us. One of the projects that you've been doing that I just find incredibly fun, you've partnered with Accessible Community and MITRE, and you've developed an accessible escape room. Can you tell us, without necessarily giving away all the secrets of the room, but share a little bit more about what drove that creation?
So it's interesting, when I first chose to venture into that project, I had come back from a weekend with the family, and we went to an escape room. And as someone who's blind, I walked into the escape room and couldn't participate. And this is not unusual to walk into businesses or offices or entertainment locations and not be able to participate for people with disabilities. But at the same time, I was surprised that it's as for those who've been to an escape room or those who haven't, it's nothing more than a bunch of puzzles. And to think that someone wasn't able to make them accessible was a little bit surprising to me. So I sat down with Accessible Communities. We discussed what I experienced that weekend, and my partner on it, Rochelle Bradley, and we talked about it, and we were like, why don't we just go make one accessible? And it's not as much about becoming an escape room company. It's about, can we develop something that people can then use and build their own prototypes and make sure that they build accessibility into their escape rooms in the future? And things to think about is, could a blind person be able to read something in print? How are you going to make that accessible? Could a person who's deaf get an audio cue? Could somebody use that padlock if they don't have the physical strength to turn that knob? And so those are some of the challenges that you're faced with when you walk into an escape room. But there's other things that become more obvious after you go through an experience like what we've developed. And we had a lot of fun doing it with the CTA staff at your offices back a little over a year ago when we piloted at your location in Virginia. Now we had to shift a little bit come March of this past year in 2020 to developing a virtual version and putting this where organizations can have us do team building exercises, not just from a virtual fun experience, which we think it is, but also to drive a message about inclusion and accessibility. How do you ensure that somebody can participate? And I think the virtual one has opened new levels of communication because we're all on these virtual meetings these days on a regular basis. And how do you make sure that what you're doing in those virtual meetings is fully accessible? And that gets messaged really well in a virtual escape room.
Well, and that's something I'll say, you mentioned when you came out and did the physical escape room with our staff, and it really was incredible because while we obviously talk accessibility quite a bit and the importance of accessibility, having the staff be able to experience the escape room really drove home. And it's different than just hearing me or others talk about accessibility or show off some products, but really to be actively and entertained while engaging with the different types of technologies, I think really drives it home. And I can't wait to see the virtual version of it, because I think that will drive home some of the opportunities with digital accessibility as well. So very excited to see what you've been able to build here.
I think an example that could drive home for some people is in a physical escape room, I couldn't put something on the ceiling that someone couldn't reach, right? I couldn't put it out of reach. I have to make it so that anybody with a physical disability or somebody who's blind could be able to get to it. If I wanted to in a virtual one, I can, as long as I properly label and drive home what it is. And so it's been a lot of fun to think about it, how you can make things more accessible by just putting it in a virtual room. Whereas if you were in a wheelchair, you wouldn't be able to reach that.
Oh, that's really cool. And it goes to the opportunities for accessible design of gaming and entertainment. One of the other conversations we've had is with the Able Gamers Foundation and some of the work that they're doing with accessible gaming. So, I love seeing kind of what you're developing in this space as well, to keep people engaged and really reach a broader audience. So thank you again for this really interesting product. I think we need to try to get it out there to as many people as we can. So I look forward to highlighting it some more. Now, I mentioned when I was introducing you that you were just elected as vice chair of the CTA Foundation Board of Trustees. Congratulations again. Thank you so much for your continued support of our work. I'd love to hear, why is it important to be part of the CTA Foundation's board for you?
So I got interested back in 2014 after joining Freedom Scientific, one of our brands. And part of the interest for me is, taking a look at the places where we can actually help organizations develop solutions, whether they're technologies or services that benefit people with disabilities, and obviously the expansion into people who are aging as well. But obviously my expertise and experience is more on the disability side. I see a lot of value in what CTA Foundation has brought forth by doing these grants for organizations who may not otherwise be able to kick off a new program. Think of it as like almost like startups, but more not the entire company, but projects. And so being able to help an organization kick off a project that trains blind people on how to use technology, or shows them how to use smart home technology, or invest in the organization to deliver something that helps people with disabilities, is a great value to both me and our organization. So we see a lot of value in what the CTA Foundation has brought.
Well, we really appreciate all your support and all the time that you've given to help us as we continue to build the foundation. Now, we're here at CES 2021 digitally this year, but we're going to hear throughout the week announcements of new technologies, new products that are launching. We're also going to have a lot of conversations about, what are the technologies that are coming in the next, 5 years, 10 years, and on, that really will impact all of our lives. I know you're someone who really loves technology, so I'd love to just hear, what are some of the areas of emerging tech that you're particularly interested in?
It's funny, as you're asking the question, I'm sitting here thinking, we're in a virtual meeting, and how a year ago we wouldn't have even thought to do this. And we would have always just gotten together for a meeting, and how much that has changed. Something that continues to grow that I'm so interested in figuring out how it becomes more accessible is VR. So much investment is being made in this virtual reality experience, which, obviously what we're doing now in these virtual meetings is a virtual reality. But the next step is the virtual reality. How does a person who's blind participate in that? How does a person who has a physical disability, hearing impairment, I've purchased different VR glasses, tried them out, and none of the technology was accessible today. And I'm really excited to see where that goes, because there's so much opportunity around, VR and assisting people with disabilities if that technology can get to the next stage and become accessible.
Oh, I completely agree. And I know we're going to see a lot of VR related content and, beyond that into augmented reality and other spaces along the lines that are related. And it is good to see, and we've certainly seen conversations that companies are already starting to have around developing XR accessibility, but there is still more work to be done. So I look forward to working with you and others as we continue to push that space forward with accessibility. So, well, Matt, it's always a pleasure talking with you. If people want to learn more about Vispero and the various companies under the Vispero brand, where should they go?
So the easiest place is obviously our website, which is www.vispero, spelled Vispero.com. And you'll find out it links off to all of the different companies.
Well, that's great. Thanks, Matt, so much for joining us here today. Always good to talk to you, and I hope you have a wonderful CES. And for the audience, if you're interested in learning more about the CTA Foundation, you can go to ctafoundation.tech, and I hope you have a great CES 2021.